It's a great pleasure. It's a great pleasure to have all of you here today. I thought you all might begin your tour here.
Hello, welcome to the Skullcast, a podcast by Yorick Magazine. I'm Ed Jameson.
I'm Alex Grover.
And I'm Christian Belland.
Christian is a new face here with us today. I brought him in because we're going to talk about The Wall, which is what this song is from, In the Flesh. And we, the three of us, along with another person, went to see the concert, The Wall, back in July of last year.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But for now, I thought we could start by talking about the concept of like where The Wall came from. So, Pink Floyd, as some of you might know, the main creative force behind Pink Floyd is basically Roger Waters, at least post Dark Side of the Moon.
Right.
And they were on a tour in 1977, I think. Yeah, it was 1977, and they were doing their first outdoor stadium tour. And Roger Waters felt that there was a disconnect between him and the audience because people were basically just going there to get really drunk and be rowdy. And at one point, he had an audience member spit on him. Is that correct? That's correct, right?
That is correct. Yeah, he was not impressed with the rowdiness of the crowd. It really wasn't. He didn't feel it's what he got into music for.
Right.
Yeah, and so he envisioned building a metaphorical wall in between himself and the audience because it would have been the same thing with the wall. Whether the wall was there or not, it would have been the same because there's a disconnect.
And that's exactly what he did.
Yeah,
he built
that's where that's where the concept came from, and he ended up physically building a wall for the show.
Yeah,
which is
literally.
Awesome. Yeah. But that was where the initial concept came from, and from then on, the actual story is based on his own life. The protagonist, Pink, is basically Roger as like his childhood and growing up, becoming a rock star
in Britain. Yeah, in post World War II.
Yeah,
Britain. I mean it was that kind of culture. Trying to rebuild that I think fashioned a lot of the rock bands that came out of England at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I know Black Sabbath definitely it had that kind of darker tone to it because I know Ozzy Osbourne's parents they were at least his father was a factory worker, and it's just like it was just a poorer lifestyle.
Yeah, I was going to mention Black Sabbath. They grew up. The neighborhood that they grew up in actually still had war damage from World War II. They grew up as children. They still had damaged buildings and stuff. So growing up around this horrible aftermath of this war really shaped a lot of the music that came out.
Sure.
So this is by far one of my favorite albums.
Sure.
Because
easily.
I would put this. There's three seminal rock operas. Two of them are from The Who, Tommy and Quadrophenia.
Yeah.
Which, funnily enough, we went and saw the Quadrophenia show as well.
Which was amazing.
Yeah. Oh, funny story about that. So we were, the three of us were walking around in the lobby, and I forget what we were doing, like getting drinks or something, and then some guy comes up to us and is like, "Yo, dude, I got these tickets for the 14th row."
He was, I might add, the shadiest looking guy. He was like 50.
I was scared.
And he was standing near a trash can just with an unmarked envelope. And he calls us over. He's like, "Hey, guys, you want some tickets?" And we're like, sure. And he hands us the envelopes. "I'm just going to throw them away. You just got to take them." and we open the envelope and look inside, and there's 4 13th row tickets on the floor.
14th, yeah.
We couldn't believe it.
No, I thought they were fake.
I didn't want to get caught with them. I was worried. I did not want to take them.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
I
actually.
thought like the FBI was gonna like rappel down and break through
Or,
the
like,
windows
this
and
was
like arrest us
this
or
was
something.
a sting, you know, a who sting. Who sting?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as concept album,
Yeah.
I think this is, in my opinion, I think the best concept album of all time as far as musical, musical quality and
Right.
the unity and strength of the vision. It's so unified and focused, and it has all these great images just reappear and reappear. It's like I would say just like a regular opera or an epic story.
Yeah.
It's
That's exactly why they made
Yeah.
it into a movie, because
Yeah.
it was literally a story.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it could be told
It
visually
just,
or
it makes
all-
sense for that format. Yeah, I mean, because there is that central character that we can kind of imbue with our feelings. I think that's why I prefer The Wall to Quadrophenia, because Quadrophenia, I mean, the name itself kind of draws from the 4 band members contributing kind of like one attribute from themselves into that main character.
Yeah.
And it was more so kind of that tubular time. I don't even know what how it's like the biker.
the mods.
That's
The mods.
the
Yeah.
mods versus the rockers.
Yeah,
Where did
almost
it
like
tubular-
this greasers versus the socias.
The socias,
like the
yeah.
same
Socias,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, like English version of that.
It's the same
Yeah.
kind of social unrest, but I do
Yeah.
agree. Quadrophenia can come off as a little bit disjointed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While The Wall is so singular, since it's pretty much, and that's the good part and the bad part of Roger Waters taking over creative control of the band. After 1973, is that he took over the songwriting, but you get a beautiful masterpiece like The Wall, where it's essentially him speaking through the rest of the members of the Wall of Pink Floyd.
Right. Right.
And that's pretty much why that they broke up, because David
Yeah.
Gilmour was tired of that.
Yeah.
Although
Understandably so.
yeah, I completely understand his point of view, but at the same time, like, Pink Floyd probably would not have been the one of the quintessential bands of the 70s if it weren't for him. Like, the Dark Side of the Moon would have never came around.
yeah.
I mean, after I think the Wall was their last album as a group together, and then Waters left, and they came out with a new album. I forget what. Do you remember what it was called?
It was the Final Cut.
That's right.
Their
Oh,
last
yeah.
their last like album in sequence was the Final Cut, and it was technically Pink Floyd. But all the band members say that it was essentially the Roger Waters show with just Pink Floyd as like the backing band,
Right.
and it was like a pseudo sequel to The Wall.
Yeah.
And then after that, they went their
Well,
separate
it had-
ways.
I was gonna say I thought that they made an album without Roger.
They
together.
did. That was Momentary Lapse of Reason,
That's
which was
it,
a few
yeah.
years after, and then
And that was the
Division
one.
Bell.
and then the Division Bell in 1991, I believe.
And those two were not very successful at all.
No,
so,
and they
Yeah.
didn't have the sort of sensibility that Roger Waters brought to it, and you can understand after listening to those albums, you can understand what
Like,
what
what he
Roger Waters
contributed, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
He contributed. He was a great songwriter, but he also had pop sensibility, so he understood how to make stuff listenable while still making it spacey and grandiose and epic.
Yeah.
And those two albums are okay, but they're nothing.
Yeah.
Do you think-
Rogers.
They have a
Do
few
you think
hits,
that-
but nothing.
yeah.
Yeah, as I say, do you think that if let's say if Waters was never in the band and they had made like those two albums, like do you think that they would have been pop? Like, do you think that maybe the reason we don't like them as much is because they're not as good as the Dark Side of the Moon or Animals or The Wall?
I mean, if Waters was still with the band, those albums would just not exist. I don't even
exactly.
know if
Yeah.
they would. That was kind of. I kind of feel those albums came about as a backlash against everything that Waters stood for. They got to Gilmour and the rest of the band finally got to explore that, and it's sometimes in exploration you kind of get lost.
Absolutely. There's actually there's a track on the Division Bell. I think it's called it mentions there's a lyric where like the wall comes tumbling down, and there's that's a repeated motif in one of the songs on the Division Bell, and that's David Gilmour's like direct reaction to Roger Waters usurping control on like the Wall era.
Wow.
So it is definitely, you're totally right, Alex. It's definitely a reaction to that time in that band's history.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's dive into the dissect the album song by song. So we started off with this podcast with the In the Flesh, which is the first song in the Wall.
Yeah.
Oh, it gives me chills every time I hear that.
It's got to be the best opening song of any album. It's so huge and epic, and it just pumps you up.
Yeah.
And it strives for that showy theme that Roger Waters wanted. And he's a showman. I had no idea, but after listening to this song, he's a true showman. He's an entertainer. He's not just a bassist slash songwriter. He is an entertainer.
Right.
Yeah.
And seeing
like
him
when he shot a machine gun into the audience. Yeah, he's
and had the plane crash into crash into the stage.
And all the
he's
sound effects. Yeah,
exactly. He is a true showman, and this song really sets that up. Very nicely. It gets you pumped up. It gets you ready for a show, and it gets you ready to be told a story. I think in that sense, it does exactly.
It's also
what it
kind of it's that band within a band, kind of thing. I think that's such a cool concept that. Then there's In the Flesh, and then later In the Flesh.
In the Flesh,
with a question mark.
Well, because that for those of you who don't know, that song comes in the second disc of the album, and it's basically the same song, just tweaked a little bit. Like it's the lyrics are a little bit different, and I think to me that was like. Or that was in the part of the album where he became like the fascist dictator, right?
Under all the drugs with the Surrogate band.
He had basically become. Like he had isolated himself from the rest of the world and like was in his own head, and he was like going crazy basically.
Right.
Yep. And talk about that's a reprise of another song, which is also extremely theatrical.
Yeah.
Usually see those in musicals, so having a reprise on like a rock album is
totally operatic. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a good word.
Is that even?
It's a word.
Okay.
It's on the radio. It's a word.
Okay. Cool. Let's go with that. That's fine.
But what Christian had mentioned earlier with the plane crashing into the wall, that he was referencing the recent tour, the recent show that we saw, where at the end of In the Flesh, the first song, there you hear a bunch of like planes and sound effect, like helicopter sound effects and stuff, which is symbolizing his father's death in the war. Correct.
Correct.
And what they did in the show was they had this big. So we were in Citizens Bank Park, which is the baseball stadium in Philadelphia, and at the back of the stadium they had a wire going from the back to the front where the wall is, and they had this big plane during all those sound effects come down this wire and crash into the wall and physically knocked it down, and there was like explosion stuff.
It was wild.
It was amazing.
It was.
Well, it was such a great kickoff for a great show. Yeah.
Just again going back to the song itself, it's a kickoff song. It's a let's get everything started song, and he's got the spectacle down. He really knows this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And before we move on, we forgot to mention how like the song is the song starts off in the very, very beginning with what are the words? I just blanked.
It's
where we began.
Isn't this where we came in?
Yeah,
or like
that's it.
It starts with like we came in, and then the song matches with the last song on the second disc where it starts the sentence, isn't this where, and then the first song on the first disc is where we came in, and it kind of like if you play it and you loop the album is a complete like circle. It's a complete.
It's
cyclical.
It perfectly transitions.
Synced. Yeah. So it just completely.
It's like they
goes
when they recorded the last song and the first song together, right?
Correct.
I'm assuming that's how they did it.
Yeah, that's how they did it. And then it also that goes back to the theme of that's Roger Waters kind of suggesting that the themes are cyclical. Where over the course of your life, especially if like you're an artist, you'll continually feel these themes and feel like isolation and loneliness, and then break through and then feel it again and again, and then it'll go on forever, which is kind of sad.
It's dismal. Even if there's this triumph of breaking down the wall, it's gonna happen again.
But it is a dismal album, so it works. As amazing as it is, it's really depressing.
Hats off to Roger Waters.
Exactly. The album itself exists as like a sum of the whole of the songs.
Definitely, yeah.
The songs themselves are just kind of pieces, and you can't really look at the songs by themselves. You need to see how they fit into the rest of the album.
And that's exactly why, like, when you hear these songs on the radio, they're usually grouped together, with the exception of Comfortably Numb. Like, Happiest Days of Our Lives and Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 are always played together because they fit. They just kind of transition into each other.
Yeah.
And also the same with Empty Spaces and Young Lust. They're always played together as well.
Yeah, I feel like if you just pick one song and listen to it, even if it's quote unquote one of their single songs off this album, you're really doing yourself a disservice. You're only getting 10% of what you should be getting from the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next song, Another Brick in the Wall, Part 1. which is basically just like an introduction to like the next song, which is Happiest Days of Our Lives.
Yeah.
Like it's just kind of I don't know how to explain it. It's like,
I mean, it's definitely, it brings about like the first musical motif, like the dun 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 dun.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. That's what
and
introduces
that's
the first motif.
yeah, dun, dun, dun,
Yeah.
dun. And that's
Yeah.
a theme that repeats through the entire album, which is again
And
very
in the end
operatic.
becomes just so
Yeah.
maliciously triumphant.
Yeah, it's
in overtaking Pink. But yeah, another brick in the wall. I mean, the part one, the later on the part two, part three. I mean, we have that continuation of building a wall, obviously, but it really does introduce that negative tone that Pink had to or Roger rather had to deal with that that post-war kind of school system in Britain. With the kind of terrible schoolmasters.
Yeah, and that's what part two is about. Happiest Days of Our Lives in part two is the oppression he experienced from the school teachers, and basically they basically extinguished the creative abilities that he wanted to develop, and they were trying to be like, no, you can't do that. Yeah. And this is where I love just Waters' genius is all of these things are bricks in the wall.
Yeah.
And to me, that's just like,
it's great, and it's metaphorical, but it's like the wall. Like if you think about just a wall, it's such a powerful image.
Yeah.
And it speaks to anyone in any society. Like the walls, walls divide and walls separate, and it's such a powerful and simple image. And he elaborates so well on it that he explores really the immense symbology of. Symbology.
Symbology. Hey.
Symbology is the
That's
thing.
it. There you go.
The immense symbolism of such a simple image. He starts at such a simple place and deviates in so many profound ways.
Another thing about the song I like is like the disco. It was kind of Pink Floyd's first like disco song in a way, with the drums and the guitar.
It is totally a disco song, and I think I'm sure that was a conscious decision, because I'm sure there was a producer breathing down their neck saying, "You guys need a single. You guys need a single off this song. You need a single off this song." And Roger was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna write some disco.
Do it, please. Listen to my English accent and do it."
Yeah. So I'm sure they thought they needed a single, and what a great single. This is one of their best songs.
Yeah. And didn't what was it, the children's choir? Didn't they just? Oh, Chris, I mean, maybe you know the story better than I do.
Well, those are real children singing, real school children singing in this song. And apparently there was like some business issues where those children never got paid. And there was an ongoing lawsuit for like 30 years about these children not getting paid. And they just finally, I remember hearing about it a few years ago, where they just finally got like the rest of their compensation for singing on the Pink Floyd album.
Years later.
Ridiculous.
30 years later.
Yeah.
Like they bring in some children, and then can you imagine like singing on a Pink Floyd album when you're 5 years old, and they're not getting
They probably
paid.
don't even remember it.
I bet they don't, and then they're not getting, and then they're getting a
Like,
check in the
I think
mail.
that was me on that album. I should probably get paid for that.
Yeah, I should get paid my £10 or whatever. I don't know how the world works.
Interest rates.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So the next major part of the album is Empty Spaces, Young Lust, because that's where Pink is he's becoming a rock star, and he's coming of age, and he's experiencing these quote unquote empty spaces in his life, which he fills with women and groupies and sex and that
all the
drugs.
experiences, the colorful experiences.
And I love the imagery that they use in the movie and in the show. With the flower and the two flowers intertwining with each other. I don't know.
That's what I loved about the movie was actually their use of animation intermixed. I know it's weird, it's kind of ethereal in a sense, but a lot of those animations have created kind of those iconic images that we have.
Of the album.
Exactly. Thinking of the album itself. So I love that scene with it's very sexual. It's very violent.
Yeah,
I
mean,
that's an over carrying motif. Throughout.
Yeah, sexuality, and you wouldn't think this isn't the music itself isn't very sexy for this album. Like it's not very sexy music, but like the images of like sexuality and like maternal like Oedipal sexuality and also like blind like hedonistic, excessive sexuality. Also,
Yeah, I mean, it's not meant to be like, it's not meant to make you horny when you're listening to
exactly.
it.
Because it doesn't.
It's supposed to be like, this is, drug, sex, and rock and roll.
Yeah.
Like that's what the song's about.
Yeah, and it's kind of the song "Young Lust" especially is kind of an attack on like America's sacred rock star society of. We always glamorize the drug, sex, and rock and roll, but here he is singing about how it's going to ruin his life.
Yeah, right.
And how they are building blocks to ruining his life. So it's an interesting attack on on American music culture as well.
Yeah.
Right. Now, sorry.
Go ahead.
The song "Don't Leave Me Now" is that from a girl's perspective, or is that Pink's perspective to all the groupies and the girls that he?
I think.
Well, now what it is like the song before that, One of My Turns is like there's a groupie he like, hooks up with the groupie and he ends up like basically lashing out. Like if you remember from the movie, he like lashes out and like breaks his whole apartment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's basically him like starting to lose control. And like the girl and the groupie sees that and like runs away, and then he's like, "Oh no, like don't leave me, like come back." Like he's like he's like realizing that he's like losing the people in his life.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I took it, at least.
Yeah, I think you're correct. Even he can't even keep a relationship with a groupie that he just met. Like a groupie that probably worships him as a musician.
Right. Yeah.
And he's slowly but surely losing control.
Wanna take a bath?
Wanna take? This place is huge. It's bigger than my apartment.
Which, if you watch the movie, it really wasn't that big.
No, it really wasn't. It's kind of not a very impressive hotel room.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then, at the end of the first disc is when it's the "Goodbye Cruel World" is the song, and that's when he finishes building the wall that separates him from the rest of humanity or whatever. Like he builds a wall between his mind and what's going on around him. And this is like the number one thing, my favorite thing that at least I connect to with this album is like I think we've all had those moments where you just want to shut yourself in and not come out, and talk to anybody, or like you just want to like get lost in your own mind. That's why I connect to this album so well, because I have moments like that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it speaks to very universal themes in the human condition of isolation, especially being a celebrity, being a rock star. I'm sure is extremely lonely.
Yeah,
and he's
very much so.
He's always away from his family. Roger Waters and Pink Floyd from the album. They're always away from their family, always away from their loved ones, just traveling and in a new city every night, and all they have is each other.
Yeah,
and
it's ironic.
So lonely.
It's ironic because you meet like tons and tons of people, but you don't really meet them.
Exactly.
Like
you're
you don't know
millions.
them. You just meet them. And that's what makes you feel lonely.
Yeah, maybe have a one-night stand or something, but it is a very lonely. And I think. Even though we're not rock stars, we can still all identify with that because life's kind of lonely sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
And then a song, a popular song, one of the most popular songs on the album on the second disc, and that was actually omitted from the movie because it was like, so the movie itself is obviously and the album is extremely depressing, and the producers felt that having "Hey You" in there would just be too much for the audience, because it's the song where he had just finished building his wall, and now he's kind of sitting there alone, like, "Hey you, is there any what are the lyrics? Hey you, out there all alone, getting lonely, getting old." Like it's just about him, like kind of withering away by himself.
Cry for help.
It is indeed a cry for help.
Yeah,
here he is. He's finally alone. He's finally got what he wanted. Just complete isolation. Now he's like. Is there anyone out there? Hey, I'm kind of lonely now.
Yeah, which is the next song. Is there anybody out there?
Yeah.
Anybody out there?
Out there.
So the next couple of songs are basically along the same lines. It's just him withering in his sorrow and
it's definitely the low point of the album. It's very down tempo. It's a lot of short songs. And I feel like it kind of represents his like fragmented psyche, where we're just kind of going through short snippets of his broken mind. With "Bring the Boys Back Home" and "Vera."
I love Vera, by the way.
It's a great song.
Who is Vera? Is that a real figure?
I've been trying so hard to figure that out.
You know what? I don't even know.
Even critics aren't really sure.
Okay.
They think Vera Lynn is like a singer or something that like Roger Waters really admired, and maybe it's just kind of Roger Waters repurposed her as kind of an object of pining for Pink Floyd,
Yeah.
the character. That's what I think. But like no one's really sure. I don't
Kind of
think.
reminds me of like Mrs. Robinson. It's like, where have you gone,
Yeah.
Joe DiMaggio? It's like, and Joe DiMaggio, he when he was asked about the song, he was incredibly confused. He's like, I'm still here. I'm here. But yeah, it's I guess it's that that kind of symbolic yearning for the past, and you know, bring the boys back home. I feel is another. It's that going back to the nostalgia of the war. Bringing the boys back home, bringing back our whatever values we used to have before this our world became cold with the Cold War.
Cold War. Yeah, I think it speaks to the golden age, kind of like jingoism of supporting the war and British backing the war, and it's supporting bring our boys back home and let's all support our war.
God save the king.
God save the king. Let's do our part to kill the Nazis. And it's so blindly following and supporting this war effort, and you very easily forget the human cost of the war, which is of course Roger Waters' dad and Pink Floyd's dad as well.
Right.
So moving on, the next song, "Comfortably Numb." This is by far my favorite song on the album.
Yeah,
I just love the just like I love the guitar solos for one thing. Like they're two of my favorite guitar solos. Yeah. There's just I don't know what it is. It's just like so much emotion behind it.
Yeah.
And like that's the difference between a good and a bad guitar solo. When you like hear it and it makes you cry. Like that's what it does for me.
Yeah. Oh no, it's a totally moving song. My favorite part of it really is it's the battle between this very villainistic doctor that just wants to fix you. The doctor.
Yeah.
Doctor. And then Pink, who's trying to find sensibility through the medicine. Is it morphine? Would you say?
Yeah. So that I don't know what the exact medicine was. It was something, but
just a little pinprick.
Yeah. Did you notice in the like when they did the song live, when they did that the pinprick, there was like a little like speck that like came up on the screen. Did you notice that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They're very aware
because
all the little sounds.
Yeah.
What they do, what they do is they have Dave. Well, back when it was the original Pink Floyd members, it was David Gilmour was on the top of the wall, and then Waters was on the bottom of the wall, and Gilmour was like playing the doctor, and he was the one that was. He would, sing the pre or the chorus parts. Like I don't know, it's not exactly a chorus. I don't know. It's a weirdly structured song.
Yeah, I mean, it's vaguely a chorus, but it's like a Pink Floyd chorus. It changes every time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that speaks again to the theatrical aspect of the album. Is like they're actually playing the roles of these characters.
Yeah.
Which is really unheard of in terms of a musical performance
in rock and roll.
Yeah, rock and roll.
I hesitate to even call this rock. I call it rock and roll just in like the broadest. The broadest terms. I would not even feel comfortable calling this like an album.
Maybe rock and roll is. If you take away the in-roll of rock and roll, you can call it rock, but there's no rolling around in here. There's no rolling involved.
It's pretty much just sitting in a chair being depressed.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, so continuing on the interesting story of the conception of this song is it was actually here in Philadelphia, where Waters was on tour, and he I don't know the specifics of the story. I actually heard this on the radio. That's how I know about it. Pierre Robert told the story. He was on stage, and he had like some kind of like broken ankle or some kind of thing where he needed pain medicine, and the doctor prescribed him something, and he took it like right before the show here in Philly, and he felt because the pain medicine made him feel numb, so like while he was on stage he felt quote comfortably numb, and that's like the thought that came into his mind while he was on stage, and then ended up turning that into a song.
Wow. Locally grown song.
Yeah, it's pretty cool here in Philadelphia.
Absolutely. City of Dreams.
I don't know if I call it that.
What is City of Brotherly Love?
Yeah, that's what's good. Yeah, there you go.
City of Nightmares.
And then after Comfortably Numb is the reprisal of In the Flesh.
Right.
In the Flesh?
In the Flesh? Yeah. Oh wait, I think actually the first is the
first
one's In the Flesh with a question mark.
Okay.
Yeah, we had that.
In the
we
Flesh?
had that wrong.
In the Flesh. Yeah.
And they introduce in this song. They introduce another imagery theme that I love, which is the walking hammers.
Yeah.
And I don't quite know what it means, but for some reason I just love it. Like, it just looks really cool and like badass.
It's definitely very
Yeah.
it's sort of fascist imagery.
Yeah.
And I think
it's like a play on like Nazism.
on like the
Yeah.
on like the Iron Eagles and like the big brass eagles of
the banners
of the Nazism. And
Yeah.
and that's kind of a hallmark of fascism, or empires in general, or Reichs, is that they want to be
very
big,
true.
Yeah.
big and overbearing, and just kind of, and they want you as a citizen to fear them, and just that's why they have huge parades and huge banners,
Right.
and a larger than life iconography. And I think that's what he's.
Well, I mean, fascism comes from the Roman Empire, like
Yeah.
fasces. It's a symbol. It's multiple sticks bound together. The idea is that one stick alone can be just torn apart, but if you tie together multiple sticks, you
Ah.
can't break them apart. So
Okay.
you are one in a group of many, and because of that, you become this giant whole. And that's the concept for fascism. Obviously, it turns into this awful tyrannical.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
on paper, it's fine, just like communism.
Yeah. And that's so where exactly does in this part of this is the part of the album where he is like basically on drugs and like inside his own mind. We talked about that before, but like, so I don't understand where the whole like him being a fascist dictator, like why is he imagining himself as that? That's one thing I never understood. Do you know?
I feel like it's a reaction of his deep-seated fears and hatred of Nazism, and
So it's like he's becoming his own fears kind of thing.
yeah, and like
Okay.
his the Nazis took his father away, and I
Okay.
feel like deep inside of him he's so afraid, and psychologically
becoming that. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, psychologically when you're afraid of something, you subconsciously strive to become it or become so like it that it's not scary anymore.
Okay.
And I feel like that's very deeply psychologically the roots of that.
And I
Okay.
also feel he was feeling that as a band, this is kind of this when he becomes this fascist dictator. This is like the apex of his musical career, and not only this the soullessness of the band, who for the stage show just they become this traditional kind of like 50s rock band with uniforms and all of that. But also just the mindlessness of the crowd who just follows everything he says. He starts, racially discriminating,
Mm-hmm.
things of that sort. And it just, I think it speaks to that mindless, blind following of
Yeah.
an audience to
Uh-huh.
a band.
Yeah, the flaws of humanity yet again. He's calling us
Yeah.
out yet again.
Yeah.
And I think what was so interesting seeing this album live was that I really felt like I was at a Nazi rally or something watching this
Yeah,
song
it's
live
scary. It's
and
so
seeing
scary.
him, and he's singing a song deriding the gang mentality that allowed the Nazis to rise up into power, and at the same time while he's singing this song, the crowd is like with him every step of the way.
Yeah.
And they looked like they were like following him, and we were just falling into the same trap that he was
Right.
singing
Yeah.
against, and
Every
it was
time-
Well,
Yeah.
and then I think part of that also is like everyone there at that point was familiar with the album because it was 30 years after it came out. So I think that part of that is like people like just getting into it,
yeah.
But still, like it didn't at
Yeah.
all take away. It's still added
It's
to
a
the
curious
experience.
little
Yeah.
social experiment
Yeah.
every time
Yeah.
it's performed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is actually it's interesting. When the album first came out, I had read that there were people who were complaining that like Waters was supporting fascism and like Nazism, but those people didn't understand.
Yeah,
like,
it's a
what
very-
was
They
actually
missed
going
the
on.
point.
That they
It's
were
a
taking
very
it too
delicate
literally.
point.
Yeah,
Exactly. It's a very satirical view.
Yeah.
And really good satire always seems like it's just supporting. It's
Right.
actually,
Whatever it is, yeah,
it's actually
exactly.
totally anti-fascist and
Yeah.
anti-Nazi
Right.
album,
Right.
work of art.
So we're gonna try to wrap this up pretty soon. So at the end of the album, we have "Stop" and "The Trial," which are the Trial's a really interesting song.
I
'cause
love
you
The
have
Trial.
all of the characters, like the over oppressive mother, the school teacher,
The schoolmaster.
I think his wife is in there,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
and they're all like basically they come together and they say, all right, it's a trial. It's like him being being tried for his crimes against himself, basically.
yeah.
Right.
And they as each character has like their own like phrase in the song.
Yeah, and it has a bunch of several, musical themes that it incorporates from the entire album contribute to the trial. I know. No, I lost. Yeah, well, yeah, obviously that.
Yeah.
But then there's a. I think. No, I guess that was introduced in the trial. Never mind.
I'm sure it's buried. I'm sure it's buried somewhere else in the album. And this song is the culmination of the entire album. It's where all the characters come back. It's where everything. It's like the showdown. And talk about structure of the album. I think the album is structured like a classic story. It's structured like a film, beginning, middle, and end. It's got a midpoint where you got your lowest. It's got a showdown at the end where all the different powers that are that exist in the album, in the world of the album, come to blows at each other. And in that way, it's structured. I think that's why it's such an engaging story, because it's structured this way, and it hits all the beats emotionally and plot wise that any good story would tell.
Yeah. And then, of course, it ends with Is This Where, which we talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
Is This Where We Began? Or that's actually Outside the Walls.
Yeah.
Is where, so this is an amazing part of the show, too, is when after the trial, when Pink has basically decided that he needs to tear down the wall, and that's where you hear the whole audience shouting, "Tear down the wall!" And that was really awesome.
Yeah.
I
love
they actually physically,
judge.
they actually physically break down, as the same thing earlier where the plane crashed into it and tore it down. Here, like the whole wall just crumbles onto the stage.
It doesn't crumble; it like explodes outwards. Like it like flies out towards the audience. It's crazy. Talk about spectacle.
That's explosive. Yeah.
Hey, what do you think those things are made out of? Like I was thinking,
that's what I was trying.
It's got to be really light, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to pick them up. Or
maybe like styrofoam or something.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Going back to the trial, by the way, I love that the judge is just the giant.
Yeah,
ass.
I forgot to mention that. Like, when they had done this live, they basically took the exact sequence from the movie, and they did that in Empty Spaces and a couple of other songs too, but they just took the animation exactly from the movie and put it into the
in giant like 50-foot puppets, which were and the stage setup was big, but these puppets were just gigantic.
Oh yeah, and the teacher,
and it was larger than life. Yeah,
right.
Which if you've seen, if you've ever, and I recommend you do this if you haven't, The Wall live in Berlin. It's a lot of the puppets were basically the same thing from that show. Have you guys seen that, the Live in Berlin show?
I've seen bits and pieces.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, like they get so many guests to come, like on Mother, the song Mother. They have what's her name, Sinead O'Connor.
Oh yeah.
And she sings like the parts that Waters normally sings. It's this one. Sinead O'Connor. And she it's my favorite rendition of Mother because she sings it so perfectly.
That's awesome. She's very talented.
And then Van Morrison comes on to sing Gilmore's parts in Comfortably Numb, which is also really really interesting.
That's so cool.
But it's very cool to watch. And there's just so many cool guest appearances in this. Which for those of you who don't know, this was the when they tore down in 1990 when they tore down the Berlin Wall. This is the show that they did to basically commence the.
So cool.
It's amazing. The most famous wall. One of the most famous walls. I think the Wall of China is pretty famous too. But
Great wall.
One of the top 10. One of the top 10 most famous walls of all time, and this album happens to be. It's perfect.
Right.
Absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Do you think they'll ever tear down the Wall of China?
If
they do, then they could totally pull this off. Like build a stage that expands the entire length of the Great Wall of China.
Oh my god! And just get enough musical guests that you just line the entire wall.
And just detonate it.
And then they'll probably have to take people that are dead just to fill up the
absolutely
to fill up the whole space.
And then when the wall comes down, the Mongolians are going to come invade again.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be the first concert that can be seen from space.
Yes.
Isn't the Great Wall filled with just the bodies of the workers?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Because I heard
I'd like to believe that because that's really interesting.
It's really awesome.
I mean, I heard that every time a worker died, they would just bury them in the wall and just keep going.
Holy crap!
Free materials.
Yeah, but then wouldn't that mean that it would decompose? Like the wall would just collapse?
I think if you surround the body with plaster, then maybe
it would be fine.
Yeah, that's true. They can mummify it.
Yeah,
essentially.
That's so metal. Oh my god.
That's what my house is gonna be. All the dead bodies of my ancestors.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't. That'd be pretty screwed up.
Yeah, you're right.
Cool. Well,
so that was you want to talk more about the concert as a wrap closing up? Like, I don't know if we touched on a lot of it already.
If I can say anything, I'll say that seeing this album live totally changed my appreciation and my context of this album. Yeah. As an album itself, I got into Pink Floyd when I was like 13 or 14. Yeah. I didn't really understand the album because I was stupid back then. And I didn't really.
We all were. Don't worry.
Yeah,
it's a very complex album, and I didn't. It never really was one of my favorite albums by them until I saw them. Until I saw him play this live, and it just totally clicked. I got all the messages.
Yeah.
I got all the themes. I really understood how the album functioned as like a story and as an album of music. And it just totally blew me away. Now it's one of my favorite albums. I'll listen to it over and over again.
That totally happened to me too when I saw it live, and then also when I watched the movie.
And I saw the movie as well.
Yeah. Because I actually watched the movie after we saw the performance live, which I wish I had seen it before because I took so much of the imagery from the movie. Right. I would have been like, oh, that's awesome. They took that right from
There's
the movie.
that thing from that part.
Yeah.
That thing.
And for you writers out there, I mean, like Christian was saying, it's a great model for story structure, finding that central ambiguous protagonist, who may be this anti-hero, who may be this redemptive hero, and just looking at Pink's struggles throughout the album, his highs, his lows, things like that.
It's a very well told story.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so I guess that wraps it up for this week.
All right.
If we don't think there's nothing else to mention, do you have anything on your mind?
I give it 10 skulls.
Oh, that's right. We have to do the rating. 10. Yeah, I definitely give this a 10.
Yeah.
Christian, this is what we've been doing. Everything we talk about, we give it a rating of 0 to 10 skulls.
Oh, yes, it gets 10 skulls easily.
Yeah.
10 skulls.
I'd say 11.
11 skulls?
11
wow.
Great Wall of China size skulls.
That's good.
It's a really awkwardly shaped skull.
Yeah. I don't even know what kind of animal that would be.
Something awful that I never want to see.
Something awful that I never want to see. That's like Lovecraftian.
Yeah. Oh God.
Okay. So that was the Skullcast for this week.
Can I say signing off?
You can say signing off. I'm Ed Jameson.
I'm Alex Grover.
And signing off, Christian Belland.
Yay.
Yay, signing off.
And this has been the Skullcast.
3, 2, 1, action!
Right.
We are the 4 horsemen! Look as closely as possible.
Stop. Alright, that's recording into it too.
Oh, sorry.
But oh crap, I shouldn't bang on the table like that.
Bang away.
Wow.
Really blew you away.